All right, everyone, welcome to the next episode of the Podcast Genius Show. And today's genius is Todd Thorpe. Todd, thank you for coming on my show. So awesome to have you here.
Amy, thank you. That's very kind of you, giving me a genius label.
You're not called a genius every day, but today you are. You come on my show and I flatter you. It's like you're a genius. It's awesome.
It's for real then. Okay.
Very, very cool. Well, I'm excited because today we're going to talk a lot about kind of one of the backbones of any sort of prop tech solution, and especially around IoT devices and sensors, is all around connectivity. And that world is completely evolving, and the way we're seeing, and we're going to talk about a little bit around the next generation of it and what Todd's seeing because he's active in the space. So, but before we get there, I'm going to let Todd kind of introduce himself. And I was so happy I could pronounce your name. I'm telling you, I get this on these other episodes where we'll spend the first 10 minutes before the show, and I'll totally forget to ask them how to pronounce their name. And I'm like the world's worst. So I'm like, and I am the laziest podcaster, so I don't edit anything. So it comes out on the show like, damn it, I forgot to ask how you pronounce your name. So I'm glad Todd Thorpe was easy. So just saying, but take it away, Todd.
It's a pretty basic name, although my father-in-law called me Scott for like the first year. No idea why, but my wife had to keep saying, Dad, his name is Todd, not Scott. It sounds good, Scott. But thank you.
Too funny. You're welcome.
Again, I just want to thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. I could probably talk for hours, but I know we have a limited amount of time and want to try to condense that down for your listeners and viewers so they can walk away with some valuable information. But I've been in the telecom space for about 35 years. So I'm kind of dating myself. Started out just in cable, worked for Cablevision and Insight, and of course, companies got bought and sold. And then I spent a majority of my career at Charter Spectrum, and I helped develop the MDU sales division back in 2006.
Wow. Looky there.
I went to a company called Dojo Networks, which is a managed Wi-Fi provider in this space in multifamily and student housing. And then I just recently joined Cambium Networks. Now I'm on the other side of the house. In Cambium, we are a developer of broadband and Wi-Fi solutions, infrastructure solutions for business, multifamily, defense, municipal applications. So really on the hardware side of the house. So very excited that I can continue to work in the multifamily space and be on podcasts like yours.
Yay, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we are back, I guess it was, so I'm a former multifamily owner, but this Prop Tech Council really is, it doesn't matter what kind of building it is. Like we got all sorts of people. So hospitality and data centers and restaurant folk. I mean, we got everybody in the council, which is great. So it's really cool because you have the experience kind of cross all kind of classes. But everybody needs connectivity. I mean, if you're going to have any sort of IoT device or sensor or, just technology in general, and things are becoming, even operators are becoming more and more tech driven. And I will say that the connectivity, it's almost critical to an operation, right? You cannot run your operation unless you've got connectivity. Can you imagine having a restaurant and none of your computers work? You couldn't get your orders to the back. They would have to pull out the old pads. Remember from like Flo's Diner, and like I'm dating myself too. The old pads, and they would have to write it down and go take it because seriously, I don't think they even have those pads anymore. I don't think they're made anymore. But connectivity is so integral. It's such a critical operation to any sort of building. So it's really cool. But I don't need to tell anybody that. That I'm preaching to the choir. But what are you seeing as far as I'm seeing folks that are how do we expand the load? Like, you know what I'm saying? There's so many
Yeah.
devices and so many, so what is the technology happening there?
Um, so good question. I think I counted, and I did a post on LinkedIn on this a while back. I think I counted over 20 devices in my home. And when you start to think about it, they really add up. You're like, oh, well, I guess, yeah, that's a device and that's a device. And
Mhm.
that's just my wife and I. Our kids are gone and out of the house. And we
Yeah,
still have all of these
yeah,
devices.
yeah, I know.
It's crazy, but we're both tech people. I've met my wife in the business, so she kind of comes from that background as well. So we can talk shop a lot, which is really great. But if you rewind the clock, Amy, what's interesting in multifamily, because I've been around since before Al Gore invented the internet. And and I've seen that evolution, right?
Mhm.
From nothing to
Right.
what it is today. And if you look at how the business evolved, you saw hospitality adopting it first.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
back in the day, you remember, and I'm sure, your viewers and listeners can remember too, when hotels would advertise free HBO, like that was a really
Yeah.
big deal, right?
Yeah.
Now that's kind of absurd that you wouldn't have. And
Yeah.
TVs now, when you check in, they have
Yeah.
your name, right? Welcome,
Yeah.
Todd Thorpe.
Yeah.
So so hospitality was really the first, and we're talking hospitality and multifamily, not Starbucks, not your retail and stuff.
Right.
Well, but they were the first to really adopt Wi-Fi technology, and now adopting the new technology of IoT and sensors and locks and access control, and all of that. Using your phone as a fob,
Mhm.
and all
Right.
that. Which you have to have Wi-Fi. You have to have a network in order to do all of that. And
Hmm.
then once hospitality, you would never think of staying at a hotel that didn't have Wi-Fi. Literally, I don't care if
No.
it's
Mm-mm.
Hilton,
Mm-mm.
wherever, you just expect that. And then when you check in, they immediately give you the Wi-Fi password, unless you ask.
Mhm.
Of course, that's one of the very first things before you even ask, where's the fitness center and where's the restaurant?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Can I get coffee in the morning? It's how do I connect? And then student housing was the next really to adopt it, and for obvious reasons, right?
Right.
Because college kids, they're gaming, they're doing classroom, hopefully they're
Mhm.
doing their homework, especially when COVID hit, that became a really big thing of online
Mhm.
learning. And now you're seeing the adoption of traditional multifamily,
Yeah.
and seeing it in luxury class A and even value add. Well,
Mhm.
as a dojo, we were seeing that, and affordable housing, and there's some really, really nice affordable housing that's being put up to, um, really look at the affordable housing crisis, because there's a lot of people who don't have broadband. I mean, that's a total
Yeah.
topic of discussion. So now I think going to the trade shows and the conferences, and having your viewers listen to podcasts like this, um, it, I would recommend those owners out there really start to look at what type of technology is relevant for them, and
Mhm.
evaluating partners out there of what they want to bring in. But it's not a matter of when, it's if. And
Mhm.
the owners who don't adopt the technology, I think, will end up becoming left behind.
For sure. So
Larger.
I think you meant to say it's not a matter of if, but when.
Pardon?
So you said when, but if, but it's if,
Oh,
but
sorry.
when.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, opposite.
No, for sure. No, they like NMHC and some, I can't remember the name of the consultant group, puts out this tenant preferences survey every other year. And it's over time has become that now a tenant will not lease unless they've got good connectivity. And either that's on a cell phone signal or if it's, they got Wi-Fi on the property, they won't lease at a community, right? Unless they can do that. And so if they don't if you're in an area where it doesn't have good cell phone signal, you better have Wi-Fi because you're not going to get any tenants, right? You're
You're
just
going
not.
across the street. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I think it's an interesting thing that some, now I get it. Multifamily owners right now and everybody in the real estate industry right now are hurting a little bit. I mean, we're in an inflationary environment, and the interest rates on probably our debt is higher than we pro forma, but
Right.
you can't, you can only grow your way out of this, and the connectivity thing is an income generator, ends up being an income generator because you can lease from it, right? And it's becoming it's interesting times for sure. I remember, I don't know, well, gosh, it was 7 or 8 years ago, and I was trying to bring Wi-Fi onto my communities, and everybody thought I was bonkers. And I was like, no, I mean, can you
Right.
not? It's like the ultimate differentiator. Nobody's doing it. And if
It
you can, and everybody's like, well, it's just kind of a nice to have. And I'm like, no, people, you know how many people they have, an average person has 7 devices and they have like 6 streaming channels and they have this, that, and the other. They want to connect, whether if you're not providing it to them, and can you imagine you have to wait for the internet guy to show up in 4 days? Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like that's like an eternity to somebody. It's horrible. It's
That
horrible.
that's a really big um reason. Obviously the cost, and costs are skyrocketing, and it's hard for owners to pencil this and make it work.
Right.
They they really want to put this in their pro forma up front. If they're building a 50 million or $100 million property, adding in a to the $400,000 capex project is well worth it. But you're right. Imagine if I use my hotel example. Imagine checking into the hotel and they just don't have it. You don't bring your internet with you.
No.
And yeah, the hotels for the most part, it's free. You can upgrade to certain levels of tiers. But yeah, you want to offer that concierge service for your resident when they move in. And
Mm-hmm.
having it available on day one when they step into the leasing office and they start, and the moving truck backs up, making that easy for them
Oh,
is huge.
yeah.
And right, it's a way to increase the NOI of the property and generate ancillary income. And I know the FCC ruling on bulk is a huge topic right now. And
Yeah.
that again could be a whole nother show. And there'll probably be a little bit of a give and take there on the ruling when it's finalized. But I don't see bulk internet ever going away. It's not going to be not something, there might have to be some concessions, but I have a feeling it is going to be something that owners will continue to be able to use.
Well, go ahead and talk about that a little bit so people who aren't aware of it, so know. Like, so tell us about kind of give us the Cliff Notes version. Since you made the Al Gore reference, you'll know what Cliff Notes is.
Right.
Like, not everybody, you understand, we got young listeners, and I'm like, I totally got that reference because I'm that old. But I was like, no one, he's like, who's Al Gore? Who is that guy?
right over their head. Yeah.
I know, but so you know what Cliff Notes are because we used to use them to cheat in school. So, all right. So, yeah. So the Cliff Notes versions of what's happening with bulk internet, that would be really cool to know.
Well, so the FCC is proposing, and again, high level Cliff Notes version, getting rid of bulk internet, whether it's managed Wi-Fi or just traditional bulk internet, putting a residential router in every unit, and getting rid of it, doing away with it. Because their argument is forcing a resident into taking a service and not having the option of
Oh, it's
picking
about
their
for
own provider.
consumer choice and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, they don't care. They really don't care, y'all. They just want to be connected. Like, seriously. I know you want choice and it's better we have competition. But if it becomes so, they're saying is if they bill it back. So if they're billing it to the tenant, hey, we have this Wi-Fi and or are they just assuming even if it's all bills paid or whatever is part of their rent, they're still considering that you're billing it to that tenant and they have no choice? Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, even if, let's just say for the sake of argument, the owner is not charging an amenity fee or a tech fee, they're not recouping that cost. So
Mhm.
buy it for $20 to $30 a unit, 100-unit properties costing the owner $2,000 a month, right? And then the owner can charge the resident
Right.
50, 60, whatever. There are instances where I think the owner is price gouging. I mean, they're really throttling it. The idea is to make it affordable for the resident, and you want to provide an experience that they cannot get from just the traditional route of going out and getting the service on their own. Number one,
Right.
making it
Mhm.
easy. But two, you're giving them a service and an experience that is less than what they would pay on their own. So $60 a month for managed Wi-Fi, roaming, can go wherever on the property, much like a hotel concept, for $60 a month versus $100 a month, where you just go out and you just buy it on your own and you have to wait for
Mhm.
the cable company, or you have to do a self-install and you're
Okay.
installing your own. It's just one less thing that you're kind of forcing the resident to have to do. So I think there will be there's going to be a happy medium here.
They're going to go like this. Just you can't make them. And that's how it solves the solution. They have the choice whether to opt in or opt out, and then they can go get their own solution. Done, solved. Like, I think that's probably where I'll go, right? Yeah. And maybe it's an opt out situation. Then they'll go, well, they're not opting out, blah, blah, blah. And then it'll be like they have to opt in. Okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, no, I think it is in the guise of, providing a service that everybody wants,
Yes.
like get over your face. Like it's seriously like everybody doesn't want to wait on the internet, dude. Like we didn't want to wait on the cable guy back in the day. We did not want to wait on the cable guy back in the day so we could get our TV. Like seriously. So yeah, we're both dating ourselves. Oh, talk about this. This is for all the young people out there. I remember when I was a kid and we were watching TV and I would be up late and at 11 o'clock at night, there was no more programming. It was like there was no more TV and you had to like there was no remotes. You had to like actually walk up to the TV and turn it on and off.
No, it was the
Yeah.
national anthem at the end of the day.
And yes, it was. There was a national anthem at the end. And it was like around 11 o'clock. At first, it was like 9 or 10. And then it got to 11. And then, like, you can't watch any more TV because there is no programming. You have to go to bed. Like, that's why the parents didn't care because they're like, there's no TV. So, of course, they're going to go to bed because there's nothing else they can do.
And you
Right.
can't
And
even get on your phone because that
yeah,
wasn't
that wasn't there. Oh, yeah. No, no. Yeah. It's special. Yeah. So good. Yeah, for sure.
went outside and played. That's
Yeah, not at night. But anyway, anyway, I digress. I do usually squirrel once or twice in an episode. Just FYI, I squirrel.
good.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's awesome. Well, okay, let's talk about so at a multifamily property, even a hospitality property, obviously if you're providing connectivity to your residents or your guests, let's talk about the next generation of the, because it was where you had to stick a hub in every room, and then you had to have a router here. And if it wasn't, and then maybe you didn't have it, and you had to have repeaters, and I'm saying words, I don't even know what the hell I'm saying. So, but I knew, because I heard, and I was like, I know enough to be dangerous. And I've heard this enough times because we had properties and we are trying to install this, but you have to have these pieces of stuff like everywhere. And so now you like, obviously you're signing agreements where you don't have to maintain that stuff, because that's a whole other skill set.
Correct.
Multifamily folk don't know, right? Or hotel folk. They don't understand that. Like they know how to like restart. I can restart it, hit the button. Like
Right.
that's all I got. Like that's as much technical knowledge around networking that we have, right? And so as these become more and more prevalent, is there like, like a internet teching for dummies? Like, I mean, we're not always gonna have to outsource that, right? Is there gonna be technology that comes along and helps? Like there's technology now that'll help people code and they don't know how to code, right? There's stuff now that'll help people get through stuff, maybe with AI or whatever, on how we're setting up these networks to where you're not reliant on another company, because at 2 a.m. they're not going to answer anyway, and everything's down and people are freaking out because they can't stream whatever it is, Game of Thrones or whatever the thing is, at 2 a.m. and they're calling you going, what the hell? My stuff's down, right? You know what I'm saying? Long question, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
hopefully I framed it right.
No, no. The idea is to deploy this technology, and as it advances, and it is advancing rapidly, it's making our life easier, not more complicated. That's the whole idea. Even though we're layering on all of this technology on top of technology. You are right. Yes, you do have to deploy a network. You have to deploy hardware. Cambium networks. That's what we do. We manufacture the access points that you're going to put in every unit. You're going to put them on usually on the wall. You're going to install them on the ceiling in a lot of your common spaces. So as you're walking around, when you're at a hotel, you don't see them. They're kind of cream colored, like a smoke detector. They blend into the environment. If they're on the ceiling, they're up high. You're just walking around and you're just connecting to the nearest access point, almost
Okay.
router within the property. You have to have a physical network, and it is a wired network, to connect wirelessly, right, in this world. And you're having protocols advancing with Wi-Fi 6 and now Wi-Fi 7 now. It's kind of here, but in multifamily, and that's just the latest protocol, which is giving you faster speeds, more reliability, and things like that as you start adding more devices on. And then that network then allows you to layer on not just a resident being able to connect their phone and their laptop and their tablet to a wireless access point, just like you would connecting to a home router that you got that the cable dude installed for you, right?
Right.
But now you're having this almost mesh network throughout the property that also allows you to add in, I shouldn't say her name too loud because she'll probably start talking to me, but Alexa, IoT
Yeah.
device,
Yeah. Right. For sure.
your access control, your
Right.
perimeter access,
Right.
your gate as you're going into the parking garage,
Exactly.
all of this stuff. And that will connect wirelessly or hardwired via Ethernet back to a switch somewhere.
Right.
And, for your video surveillance.
Yeah.
It really is here, folks. It is.
Yeah.
And as the technology evolves, I was reading an article today. I forget what website it was, but it is it is the consolidation, centralization. That was the word, centralization of technology. Meaning,
Yep.
it takes everything because everybody's got an app, and I have an app for my security. I got an app for I got an app for some lights. Trying to keep it all together in one app, but then getting back to technology helping us and not adding to our workload is, so instead of the resident going to the leasing manager complaining that the internet's out, the resident can log into their own portal and see what device is not connected. A lot of these networks should be self-healing, and the providers should be able to remotely
fix it.
be able to fix things from a network operations center. That's important. They don't have to send a technician out to fix something unless it's a major outage.
That's so 80s. Sending a technician is so 80s.
Well, that's rolling a truck. A truck.
I know, rolling a truck. We're gonna roll a truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to charge you $200 to roll a truck, right? So we want to fix that stuff remotely, but then allowing the leasing staff, giving them a portal so they can log in and onboard residents as they move out.
Right.
Turn thermostats on and off. If the unit's empty, it's going to be turned. All of that stuff does help you be more efficient. Lost key, instead of having your phone as a fob. So all of those things, adds a layer of complexity at first, but once you get the hang of it, it really is meant to simplify your life.
Well, yeah. So as long as it is simple, right? You don't want it's cool tech, but if it's too complex, no one's going to use it. And so it's got to be super simple for sure. I had a thought, and it might have left me, it is a Monday, y'all. We're shooting this on a Monday, just saying, and it is the morning, and I have not had enough coffee. But okay. So, no. I think the whole part about the connectivity and being able that what it enables is very, very cool. Oh, my thoughts back. Is okay, but now there's more and more AI solutions coming out, right? Facial recognition, being able to control access control and using cameras and all these great things. Yeah, all those things. So what is that? I'm curious because I don't know. What does that do to the bandwidth issues of the connectivity? Does AI require more than just your normal deep to get in? I'm just curious.
No, not really. First of all, there's things that Al Gore hasn't invented yet that we don't know.
Poor Al Gore. We gotta give. He'll never live down that statement, and we're just perpetuating it. So for y'all kids who don't know, back in the 90s, Al Gore was running for vice president, and he made the unfortunate mistake to say that he invented the internet. Like, really, dude? And this is bad. So back in the day when I was in college, there was no internet. I was a lab technician, help desk support person. And so when people couldn't get their Word Perfect to work or Harvard Graphics to work, or because there was no Office, y'all.
Right. Yeah.
There was none of that. Like Harvard Graphics is now your PowerPoint. Word Perfect is now your Word. And then, it's funny how Microsoft owns that whole thing now. I digress.
Floppy disk.
Floppy disk. And then we're like, because it was Purdue, we had Lisa. We had a Lisa. Like the very first version of Apple. We had that in our computer labs. And I was having to learn how to use that thing. I was like, and then the screen was about the size of my Zoom screen. It was so small. Anyway, and that was before, but then we had Gopher. I totally squirreled on this one. Gopher and Veronica, and that was our first version of internet. So he did not create it. University of Minnesota created Gopher, and then Veronica came out by somebody else. And then, and then there was, Mosaic, and everybody thought that was the coolest thing to slice bread. And you could actually use a graphical interface. That was the first version of kind of the internet that we know today, was called Mosaic. And it was actually pretty cool. And I can't remember who founded it, but or who started it. But I think it, and then there was Netscape. Remember the Netscape guy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And he quickly left. Google just out, Google went
And this,
into the Netscape guy, Netscape Navigator. All right, that was a big squirrel. See, I do these. I'm telling you. All right, so Al Gore did not invent the internet. I think someone's going to put that on his tombstone. I really do.
we're,
You know, that would
we're
be too
about
funny.
that
Someone's if they remember, will graffiti his tombstone with "I invented the internet" because he will never live that down. Like ever will he live that down? Oh my gosh,
There's
too
going to be
damn
a
funny.
meme that comes out too after this episode plays.
I know. All right. So AI is it going to affect the bandwidth? You don't think so? I mean, they're having to rebuild computers now. They're talking about rebuilding computer chips because it just stresses a normal computer out, right? And that's like the best technical term. I'm a tech founder, y'all, but I don't know how to code. But it stresses out the computer. So NVIDIA is looking at developing new chips to handle the AI load and all these other things. So yeah. So if you don't think the connectivity is going to be an issue, then that's cool. I
Well,
don't know.
I don't think the actual AI itself is going to draw more power or anything like that. Although it's getting smarter, right? So maybe
Yes, it is.
it'll take over.
It's not going to take over. Okay, keep going.
Have your production a person insert a dramatic video.
See, I'm laziest podcaster ever. I don't edit. You got to remember, laziest podcaster ever. Hit
Well,
start, hit end, post. That's what I do. Okay.
No, yeah. So we'll do. I inserted it right there. So
There you go. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't think it's going to do that other than it is more and more technology is coming, and I think it's inevitable. And you talk about EV charging, and it's putting a stress on the grid and things.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, it will come. I don't think. And the infrastructure will have to catch up. It kind of simultaneously as things evolve and grow. I think, and again, I'm not an AI like designer person type, of how those things are created. I'm not that smart, but even though I am a genius, I guess.
Yes, you're a genius today.
On the podcast, it's just the evolution of technology that's either here today or things that will be coming in the future that we don't know yet. The integration of property management software is very important in all of this technology too.
Yes.
People ask those questions. Well, can this integrate with Entrada or RealPage or Yardi and
I know
PMS systems out there? The answer should be yes, because again, we're trying to help people and not have disparate systems because we're trying to centralize and keep things together, eliminating dashboards and things like that.
yeah.
The horse is out of the barn now.
Yeah. I think as it, so it's going to be dependent upon the computers or the servers that are usually it's on staff, and so it's device load, right? That determines the bandwidth and its performance. So as people use more and more devices, or as there's more and more devices that are there to spy on you in a nice way, are added to the units, whether the tenants know or not, right? Sometimes they're spying on your AC usage, and sometimes they're spying on different things, all in the aims of saving the environment, which I'm okay. Spyway. Like if I forget to turn my AC off, please ping me and tell me. I don't want to be ruining the world because I'm a knucklehead. But I think it's the more and more of those, more and more ITO devices, more and more sensors, more and more things to improve our world are going to be there. And even if it's I mean, our fridges, eventually over time, our fridges are going to talk to us, right? In multifamily, they do it now in homeowner land, but in multifamily, they're going to talk to us, or they're going to tell you, or they're going to tell the owner, hey, this is there's an issue. And all these devices are going to be sending these, they're all, once they get smart, then that's another device load that you're going to have. So talk about the next generation of what's the Wi-Fi 6, 7, are we on 7? Like it's like the new Apple phone 15. They can't keep up with Apple phones. Like they can't keep up with the numbers. I'm just curious. But what's the difference? What's happening
Yeah,
there?
really, it's the latest protocol
Oh,
that is just like you go from, you know, 4G LTE to 5G, which, you know, on your phone, or the latest version, yes, of your Android or your
mm-hmm.
Apple device.
Yep.
Wi-Fi 7 from just a high level is the latest protocol that's coming out. And it
Okay.
allow faster speeds, higher connectivity, more devices. It will just allow us to do more. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's not the end. It's Wi-Fi 7.
Right.
You know, have me on your show in a year, we might be to Wi-Fi 10 already. I mean, it's going to evolve. But again, it it means that as technology evolves, it has to be able to connect and hook up. The thing I want to say though, and this is really important for your listeners and viewers, is two things. Don't be, you know, listening to this podcast or watching it, going to a conference. The best advice I can give you is you want to make sure that you're educating yourself. If you feel like you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
call me, I'll give you my contact information, free advice. Don't charge for that at all. But don't be so paralyzed. What is it? Analysis by paralysis. Don't
Right.
feel like, okay, I got to know everything before I jump in and I do something before I get my toe in the water, because you will be so afraid you'll never do anything, and then pretty soon the property across the street has already deployed everything else and you're way behind. So really make
Yeah.
sure that you're jumping in. And then secondly, don't be afraid that, well, gosh, if I don't have the latest and greatest, then I'm just going to have to replace it in another year. I don't want it to be obsolete. That's
Mm,
that's not really true. I upgraded I'm a Samsung person, and I upgraded my cell phone to the 23 just recently, and I had a S29 for the longest time. The phone worked. It's just I was more of having the new toy than anything else.
yeah.
But with the technology, just because Wi-Fi 7 is coming out, don't feel like, well, I have to wait to put anything in access points that are only Wi-Fi 7 capable, because if I don't, that's not the case. Don't feel like you have to have the latest model of car before you go out and buy something and start to make the investment, because technology is not going to evolve that fast where it's all of a sudden going to be, I'm spending $200,000 and just make that number, but you put all that money into it and then
Uh-huh.
it's obsolete in here.
So if you deploy the solution today, would it be Wi-Fi 7? You could switch it and upgrade it and it's no big deal. You're not having to rebuy hardware, right? Like you're
Correct.
not, oh, well
Well,
then
well,
yeah.
the access point has to be Wi-Fi 7 compatible. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like a
Yeah.
cell phone would have to be 5G compatible in order to
Right.
do it. What I'm saying is, if you deployed access points that were Wi-Fi 6 compatible,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, when Wi-Fi 7 is fully launched, you're way behind the times. It's just,
Oh, okay. All right. Well, but so how yeah, I mean like anything's better than keys. I'm just telling you, keys suck. I like they're horrible. I was apartment property manager, and
right.
I felt like I was a key shop. That's all we freaking did was make keys. Like, it was like shoot me in the face, and then everybody lose them. The maintenance tech would lose them, everybody would lose them. And I was just like, oh, I hate keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It-
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Don't People get so hung up on, and they want to research everything to death. And you do. You want to research and you want to do your due diligence. I'm not telling your listeners not to do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
But it's so hung up that you have to have all the answers before you start implementing technology. And roll
Well,
it out.
no, it's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. A Wi-Fi 6 compatible experience that you're giving your tenant is going to be much better than a key. Just saying.
Way better than putting in access control, keyless entry on your doors.
Yeah.
The resident, it's going to help your leasing staff, the maintenance
Yeah.
staff, and even smart thermostats.
Yeah. So if they did happen to stick it in today and Wi-Fi 7 comes out next year or even later this year, like, is the experience going to be that much different? It's not, right? So like, why are you waiting? You can differentiate yourself now. I totally get it. I totally get that. That's just kind of, yeah, but I get the fear too. People are like, oh, we're going to spend all this money and then something else is going to come out and then we should have waited. But you're losing tenants today because they can't get in, and the experience you're giving them if you're using keys and don't have Wi-Fi in your property is probably super subpar, right? So yeah.
Better to get into the game now versus waiting
Yeah.
forever. And your viewers can call me anytime. I'd be happy to
Mhm.
give them kind of an overview too.
Yeah. I like the because I remember old back in the days, because I'm an old property manager, and we were looking at, and it's not back in the days on this kind of tech, no joke, is like 4 years ago. So FYI, it's not like 20 years ago. This is like 4 years ago. And the people on around access control, it was a heavy lift because you had to modify your doors and you had to do all, but now they're coming out with cool tech where it just sits on the regular deadbolt and it's like no big deal. And it's easy to do now. So if you were to switch one, and it's just like changing, how many times in an apartment have you changed out a deadbolt? Like a million times, right? You remember when Quickset came out with the master key thing and you could just switch it to a new key and it had the little like tool you would stick in there and then you could just switch the key. Everybody thought that was the coolest technology ever. I'm like, no, let's just get rid of keys at all costs. Like, it was so weird. But yes, you didn't have to change out your deadbolt. Like that's what they were all excited about for sure. Yeah.
By having the technology built in to that device, whether it's a lock or something like that, and being able to change things out via software versus
Yeah.
yourself, updates. And technology does have to be just like, I don't want people to think it's maintenance free, but this isn't on the leasing or the ownership. This would be on your provider that installs
Right.
technology. But you do want to have the infrastructure, not the wiring, but your access points and your switches, the latest firmware and software updates and things like that, which they will be doing during the life of that agreement that you have with that provider. You're going to want to make sure that they do that. That's important. It's like buying the laptop and then all of a sudden you're your phone up, got to have the software update,
Right.
it on your phone or whatever. And some people put that off because they don't want to mess with it. You do want to keep things up to date in that regard, but you don't swap out the whole device.
So has there been any major developments around the hardware piece? Like, you used to have stick a box in every unit and you still had to have like, I don't know the names of them, but is there stuff coming down the pike that requires less hardware, or is it still going to be very box heavy? Because when those boxes go out, like that's the nightmare of property managers, like, oh, this box is not working, someone can't get connected to something, and oh, holy hell, right? The world is on fire. So I'm just curious.
So from a hardware standpoint, if you're putting in, so for your listeners, just a quick overview of the type of internet you could have in your property. So you have a 150 unit property, could be student housing, it could be conventional, let's just make it easy. Could be senior housing too. But you have that, you have a couple of options. You have really three. The resident can go out and you're not involved in it whatsoever. The resident goes to the nearest local cable company, phone provider, whatever. They get their hardware, they self-install it, or they have that cable technician come out and install it, and that's it. And the bill is between them and the cable operator or the phone company, just like you would do in a home. It's the same thing, whether it's an apartment or not. Then you can do bulk internet, which would be taking that same consumer grade router that you would get, and that would be installed in your unit, but you don't have to pay the bill. The property owner is paying the bill to the cable operator, but then the property owner may charge you an amenity fee for it. But it's taking that first example and putting the same consumer grade technology in every apartment. So you have a 150 apartment, you have that consumer grade router, and now you're going to have a lot of
parts,
RF signal, and you're going to have issues. And then the third level up is installing what would be a managed Wi-Fi system, which you would put in, or your provider, you would work with the provider. Cambium, we manufacture the hardware. So the switches that go inside a telecommunications closet that get connected via fiber and Ethernet. And then a enterprise, and this is enterprise grade equipment. And now enterprise grade router, access point that installed on the wall of your unit.
Okay.
And in your common spaces, like in the lobby and in the fitness center and the restaurants and a clubhouse and things like that within the apartment community, outside by the pool. So you have outdoor rated ones. So then you can do what's called property-wide roaming. And you have a unique SSID for you as the resident. And then that's secure. It allows you. That's the ideal. And then by installing a network like that, the owner can then start to layer on all of this IoT technology. If you just put do bulk internet with a consumer grade router in every unit, you can't start connecting locks and thermostats and all this other stuff that we've talked about. It just doesn't work.
Well, I'm so glad you explained that, because that is the key difference for sure. Because I have this perception back in the day when I was managing of that. So that's really cool. So in it, and then is the hardware requirements less on the managed solution, or is it, you still have to stick something in every unit, but in every kind of location, but is it, and what is the cost? No, first of all, no one wants to do the consumer grade one. That's, I think, the first gen of managed Wi-Fi, right? Was those consumer grade, like everybody just stuck one in every unit or whatever, right?
You want to do that. It will cost more to install a more of a sophisticated enterprise grade system. Think of it this way. Do you put in and kind of a rhetorical question? Do you put in, no knock to Ring or any of those companies out there, or Simply Safe and things like that from a security standpoint? Those are more of a consumer grade that you would put into a home, or maybe own your own apartment or live in your apartment. You would put those types of devices in versus hiring a security company to come in and put in a sophisticated enterprise grade security system in your apartment complex. So it's going to cost you a little bit more, but in the long run, it's going to be much more reliable, and the resident will have a much better experience. So that's what you want to start to look for when you're talking with apartments out there on and who can do this and who can't.
What requirements, like physical space requirements? I mean, do you have to have like a like closet thing for
Yep.
the equipment? Do you have to have that, right? You do, right?
So if it is a, depending on if it's a like a low rise, mid rise, high rise, or
Mm-hmm.
garden style, which will have many buildings
Mm-hmm.
spread out over you might have 10 buildings. Yeah, 8 units in each with a clubhouse. Yes, each of those locations take a single building, low rise, mid rise, high rise. You'll have a main data closet, and everybody's kind of seen a telecommunications closet
Right.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
all the all the gear that goes in there in a
Yeah.
rack. And yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have a fiber circuit that will come from a provider and come
Mm-hmm.
into that and demarc there. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, you will have, depending on the size of the property, you may have multiple data closets where that equipment is connected via
Mm-hmm.
fiber and
Mm-hmm.
Ethernet. And then from there, so it's kind of like a spider network. And then from those data closets, you will run Ethernet to your access points generally, or you can run fiber directly to the unit. You can do both. Fiber is going to cost a little bit more
Right.
generally. Um, so then, yeah, you're going to install that hardware. And again, the trick is the provider you need to make sure they're doing it as unobtrusive as possible, where you don't, it
Right.
blends into the environment like it belongs there.
Yeah, I mean, like, so is it still where they have to trench and I mean, are they having to dig and do things like that? Is it that how you're connecting these networks, or is it,
Yeah,
yeah?
especially like so in a single building, mid-rise, everything is going to be within the risers
Hmm.
of the building itself.
Right.
And then like a garden style, yeah, unless you go aerial, but we
Hmm.
also offer fixed wireless and point-to-point solutions where we can put up microwave and we can shoot a signal from the roof of two garden style buildings. And we can
Mm. Oh, okay. That's cool.
versus running fiber underground and having
Yeah.
trench it. But that brings up another point, Amy, is people start to think about this. You really have two scenarios. You have existing properties or brownfield retrofit.
Right.
You have your
Right.
greenfield new build.
I know.
As people are building, it's easier to, well, I shouldn't say easier. I don't own property, so I can't say, but I would assume adding that money into your pro forma when you're getting a loan for a
Oh,
75
yeah.
property versus a value add where
Right.
you're come in and you're going to update the finishes, new paint, maybe redo the parking lot, new landscaping,
Mhm.
and then you also need to add in a capital budget for putting in a Wi-Fi network.
No, it's a million times easier to do it as part of acquisition or part of development. You roll it into your cost and you just do it that way. But I will say on the retrofits, if you, and this is I love to bring on somebody who I know, one of the lenders around PACE and things like that, because if you can make a strong case
Yep.
that internet connectivity, um, enables the IoT devices that reduce their green improvements, right? They reduce energy because you have the IoT sensors reducing water usage. You have IoT sensors that you can reduce energy usage. I think if you are going to go install those IoT sensors, a part of that package is you have to install Wi-Fi. I mean, it just comes with it. So if you are doing a retrofit, that CPACE would pay for that, right? You would think, or Freddie Mac Green Improvements would pay for that, right? Because it's all, you can't do one without the other. You just can't. But I'd love to get my CPACE expert on here, and I'll call her next and go, hey, how can we do this? Because that would then open up the door for all the brownfield existing building stock that does not have this. And the owners are right, they're crying into beer at the moment because it's so tough. Like I get it. I still own a couple properties. I'm just not actively asset managing them, but it sucks right now. It's horrible right now. And so they can't even think past their nose to figure out how the heck are they going to get through the next month, much less let's be strategic and put Wi-Fi on our property, right? And so it's really interesting time. But if CPACE is great because then it allows you to make those improvements, right? And it's just another financing arm that people can get at a lower interest rate because it's government subsidized, so it's helpful for sure.
Well, and like in affordable, in new development with affordable, a lot of municipalities are in states are starting to tell the affordable developer, you have to put in a managed Wi-Fi system for the
Ah,
resident.
that's cool.
And it has to fit this criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a matter of, you have an option. You have to do this.
Well, yeah, you get back to the point where there is internet deserts, right? Because people are
Pardon?
just their internet connectivity deserts where people
Oh, yeah.
don't, yeah, where people don't have access. And typically it's the, less affluent and living in affordable housing and they don't have it, right? And I can't, I mean, for you and I, or anybody else probably listening to this, obviously, because you have to have internet to listen to it, you wouldn't imagine having not having internet or access to internet or cell phone signal or Wi-Fi or whatever. I mean, like it still boggles the mind that somebody doesn't, right? And it's like when AT&T went down the other day, when AT&T had an outage for hours, I was just like, oh my God, it just exemplified everything that we do with our phones, like our, navigation and this and that and my calendar and this and this. And I couldn't get access to my phone. Like, oh my gosh, right? It was crazy town. But some people live like that every day.
Having withdrawals. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you rely on it so much. There
Yeah.
are residents who will say that they would rather do without water or electricity before they live without their phone or and their
Yeah, so crazy. Well, this has been such a cool conversation. I'm so glad you came on today. This has been so good. It's really, really good to talk about this, especially as we kind of, move forward as a tech industry. It's always really cool. You're welcome back anytime. This has been so awesome. But for those people who would like to get your advice and would like to reach out to you, how could they do that?
Well, three ways. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can send me a connection request. If we're not, you can DM me on LinkedIn. Just look up my profile, Todd Thorpe, and not Scott Thorpe, but that's Todd Thorpe. And email is todd.thorpe@cambiumnetworks.com. Phone number 608-669-6514.
You're giving people your number. Man, you're brave. All right, you go you. All
I'll
right.
block that number if I need to. I don't mind.
Yeah, or your wife will. You never know.
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks again. It's been so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.